Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and oh my god, we're having a in-person Welcome to the Wasteland with Matt and Alex. This is actually the first time we're going to be on my channel all together in person, so this is exciting. Matt and I have squeezed in front of a table before, trying to film an episode before the pandemic, but this is really exciting to have both of you here and joining my little weekly show called Welcome to the Wasteland, because we are here to talk about No Country for Old Men.
As you can see, I dressed up. I don't know what these guys are trying to do over here, but I came prepared.
I look like your English professor from college who probably had a flask on them during class.
This video is sponsored by Pfizer Moderna, right?
Pfizer
But
Moderna.
maybe
Right, it is.
But maybe not J&J.
Not quite. Don't trust that baby powder,
This is all getting left in, so you're welcome. So, here on Welcome to the Wasteland, the show has 3 parts. We have our coming attractions, our feature film, and then a Q&A afterwards. So I actually get to have people to ask questions to. So this is fun. I will also answer the questions, because I generally do, because most of the time I'm doing this by myself. So, we're going to get things started with our coming attraction for Friday, April 30th, which this will drop on Friday, April 30th, just in time for Netflix's what formerly was Connected, which is now The Mitchells versus the Machines, which is a new animated film from the creators of Gravity Falls, which I'm a huge fan of Gravity Falls. I don't know, and obviously Matt is too, because he's given it the okay. You should watch it.
I should watch it.
So, and all of you should too. It's like 2 seasons, 40 episodes. Yeah. Like all together. It was only meant to be 2 seasons. It's a show that actually meant to end. Like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. But no, this is not from the same guy who made those, so that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Animated movie from the guys who created Breaking Bad. A
lot darker. Probably on Adult Swim.
Yes, but this is also from producers Lord and Miller, who have brought us the Lego Movie, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, 21 and 22 Jump Street. And so there's a lot of creative juices behind this one, and I'm going to read off some of the cast because there's a lot of people in this. We have Charlene Yee, Olivia Colman, Academy Award winner Olivia Colman, and actually maybe after tonight, a 2-time Academy Award winner. Eric Andre, who's been popping up in a lot of things lately, including Disenchantment, which one of the co-writers and directors, Jeff Rowe, actually works on Netflix. Sashir Zamata, we have Maya Rudolph, Danny McBride as the world's worst dad in like everything, and Abby Jacobson, who's also in Disenchanted, Fred Armiston, and Conan O'Brien.
Conan O'Brien.
Conan O'Brien.
Which is obviously the star of the film, because Conan O'Brien. But so, we actually watched the trailer for this, which was actually an older one, I think, because it was still called Connected at that point. This has been bouncing around for a while, because I remember seeing this trailer in theaters before COVID.
Oh, damn. So
then during COVID, Netflix is like, you know what, I'm going to buy half the movies out there. Thank you. And then now we're getting it on Netflix. So, with all of this being said, because this film is about a family taking a road trip to take the oldest daughter off to college when she obviously doesn't want them to be there, and then we have the machine uprising because Skynet. So, what are both of your thoughts on this film? Does it seem like something you're going to be checking out on Netflix?
Yeah, why not? It looks fun. It looks interesting. Like I like the way that the characters are. I don't know. It looks cartoonish enough, but not. It doesn't look. There's like an animated movie, and the characters are kind of like it's like ugly animation. Does that make you know what I mean? Yeah,
but I think a Big Mouth on purpose.
I like that show too. But yeah,
I do too. That show's messed up.
But yeah, I like the way that it looks. So yeah, why not? Why not? You can like vacuum and heat it in the background or something.
You do have that option on Netflix, so there you go. What about you, Alex?
It looks really clever, and it looks like fun. It's not typically something that I would click on, but if I was with a group of friends or a date, or especially if I was with somebody who, like my friend who has a couple of kids, totally, it'd probably be, it's one of those things, if you pull my arm, I'll probably have a damn good time, but yeah.
So I'm obviously going to go off on a tangent here because usually I do. It's fun seeing a kids movie where there are kids around because I remember watching Captain Underpants, the first movie, in theaters, and when Weird Al's theme song started playing over the credits, half the kids in the audience started getting up and dancing in the middle of the theater, and I'm like, they won. They got the kids, and those kids are going to come back at least 5 more times, and there goes their parents' money.
Right.
So, and probably cost them $50 to go there with all the tickets. So, that's one thing you probably don't miss about the theaters is it costs you a small fortune with a small group of people. But
right.
you do have those things, and I obviously picked this one because there's a lot of independent films coming out on the 30th, as well as Tom Clancy's Without Remorse on Amazon. But this is the one that stuck out most to me because I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. So I'm looking forward to it, and I love Gravity Falls, and I love Lord and Miller, so I definitely think it's going to be funny and have heart and meaning into it, too. Because honestly, the first half of the trailer, you're like, this could be a meaningful, like, Goofy movie kind of story, because, like, going on a road trip with your dad, who's, like, a super dad, like Goofy is in a Goofy movie, but then you throw in the Machine Uprising, because, like, why not? So, have something for everybody. But that's the coming attractions for this week, and now we're going to get much darker. Much darker.
Everything, like, it was funny, like, the idea of, like, a Venn diagram of, like, you know, there's dads and then there's conspiracy theorists. It's like... of machine uprisings. Oh, man.
I'm going to be that dad.
In the middle.
Yeah. I don't have too many conspiracy theories, but the machines will rise against us. So that's going to happen. But this episode's not about this, because also the main feature today took place in 1980. So honestly, I thought about this while watching No Country yesterday. I'm like, this is one of those movies that wouldn't work today.
No Country?
Cell phone, like the story.
Okay.
Cell phones would have solved a lot of problems.
Sure.
And also probably would have compounded some of the problems.
Right.
It's interesting to think about that because, like, I don't think this exact story would have worked the same way if you had that kind of technology, but placing it in 1980 Texas works perfect.
Right.
So, and it's great. It's actually one of my top 10 favorite films, so I'm very excited to be talking about this. But what I want to get started with, in general, is, so I've been spending a lot of time on this show talking about the Coens, seeing as this is, like, episode 10, 11, or 12, somewhere around there, and I've only talked about Coen Brothers films. Matt here was on my Fargo episode, so that was a lot of fun. So, what are both of your thoughts in general on the Coens?
The Coen Brothers, I think, oh man, I mean, they're masters in a sense. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is Big Lebowski. I mean,
The Dude Abides.
Yeah, well, you get that. There's just something special about that movie. Some of their movies, like that one, grow on me the more I watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, what's so great about them is there's something unconventional and unorthodox about the way they make movies, the way things happen. They just don't typically happen that way in other movies. And sometimes, as we'll kind of talk about with this, it almost feels like nothing happened or something happened, but it happened from a different angle than a typical Hollywood movie. It would happen in a typical Hollywood movie, and it never feels too heavy-handed for me either. It always feels, you know, like it either feels subtle or it just feels different, you know. But somehow it still feels cinematic. So that's how I feel about a lot of their work, especially this brand. The chill, the nail biting ones, the thriller ones, have that kind of feel for me.
You bring up an interesting point because referring back to last week's episode about Lady Killers is it doesn't work because they try too hard.
Okay.
Lady Killers feels like they're trying to be funny.
Right.
And most Coen Brothers films feel like it just works because it works. And they just go for it. And to quote next week's episode's film, Burn After Reading, what was the point of this?
Right.
Like at the very end of the movie where J.K. Simmons is just like, what was even the point? which I think that's the point of Burn After Reading. And they're, like, Cormac McCarthy, who wrote No Country for Old Men, is not exactly the most hopeful writer. There is...
The Road.
The Road. Oh, man. I want to see a Road adaptation by the Coen brothers. Except John Hillcoat, I think. I think he's an Australian filmmaker. Like The Road Ari was made. I think that's who directed it. That's a messed up movie. It's somewhere down there. Yep. Somewhere on my wall of movies back here. But Matt, what are your thoughts on the Coen brothers?
I think my introduction to them was Fargo.
Set the tone.
And I was like, okay, wow. So not only because I heard about the movie, kind of like everybody does. So there's a foot scene, and it's bloody, and you should just watch it. And then so I heard that so many times on YouTube and other people. So I finally watched it, and I was like, okay, yeah. So there was a foot scene, and it is bloody. But this movie is you definitely don't like content trigger warning. That movie is messed up, but in a good way.
We spoil everything here on Welcome to the Wasteland of the films that we watch. So if you haven't watched Fargo, go watch it, and you'll find out why that might just be his partner in the wood chipper there.
Yeah, that is, wow, that is, he is funny looking. Before and after.
You know, he's funny looking.
That's funny looking. But yeah, the Coens, they're funny, they're dark. The number one thing that comes to my mind when I think of the Coen brothers is the fact that they are really violent, and sometimes like the violence is so odd. I think we were talking about it with the Fargo one, where the violence is almost kind of like it's messy violence.
Yes.
Or it's like it's like unfair sometimes, and it's just random. Like in this movie, I think there's like this random people that get shot, and it's like, oh, okay, well that's just okay. It's like all this collateral damage, and it's just dark and it's twisted, and it's kind of like, yeah, this is what it is. And like this movie. Well, I'll get to this movie, but yeah, the Coen brothers are pretty interesting. And there are not many directors like them. I can't really think of anybody else that could do, that are like bleak, and then also like gallows humor, and then also like, they dig their desolate like settings. Like
Midwest.
Yeah, like they really like that. So yeah, so they bring an interesting flavor.
I don't need to say anything if you've watched any of the other episodes, because I just gush about the Coen brothers on them, so we'll leave it at that. And also, Roger Deakins. So there's our shout out to the greatest cinematographer working today, Roger Deakins. And
so you're lukewarm on him.
Mild. So basically every single shot in this film is gorgeous and perfect. Exactly how they wanted it. And that's, you got Deakins and you got the Coen brothers. Your films are going to look that way. Which is also why I'm sad that he's not working with them anymore.
Why?
Well, because he wasn't, they had a different cinematographer on Buster Scruggs.
Oh, okay.
Oh, not because no falling out. It was just
I don't know.
Scheduling.
I know he just started working a lot with Denis Villeneuve. Which is also why his films look absolutely gorgeous too.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I don't think he did Dune, though. That's interesting. I'm not sure, but that's a film I'm waiting for. Oh, man. Should be coming out this fall. Hopefully. We'll see. But in terms of how this film starts off, which is very interesting, dating back to my first episode of Welcome to the Wasteland, where I started with Blood Simple, it has these shots over Texas. And it's just these landscape shots, but the difference, and it has a voiceover. And it's right out of the book, like word for word. Which the interesting thing, apparently the Coen brothers writing the script, one was reading the book out loud and the other one was typing away. So like a lot of this dialogue is lifted right out, which is also why I want to see them do more Cormac McCarthy, because it sounds like they were perfectly made for each other. Because a lot of this dialogue sounds like it could have been the Coen brothers who wrote it. But that opening voiceover, Tommy Lee Jones, one of the best voices in Hollywood, and just the way that he embodies that voiceover and the horrific things that happen over the course of this voiceover. And you have this whole entire stage set, and Tommy Lee Jones has this voiceover describing this, just like, there's a nihilism about a lot of things in this film. And just like what's the hope in this? And we'll talk more thematically about this film because I think this leads all the way up to the end of it. But he sets this tone with this story. And you see Chigurh being arrested. And this film drags you right in when Chigurh murders a deputy in the middle of a police station, which is haunting because you see the deputy completely relaxed on the phone and you see Chigurh like bend over, and then he gets up and he starts walking towards him. So how did you both react watching this film for the first time, seeing the film open like that, with him strangling that deputy until literally blood was gushing out of his throat?
It's for me, it's not even like the blood. For me, it's the like the shoe marks on the floor. Like that's like, it's just an interesting image that I've never seen in another movie, and it's like, wow, okay, like that man is like fighting for his life. Yeah, it's like a horror movie.
Yeah, no, I forgot about that detail. That was really, but I remember it now. It just really heightens like your awareness as a viewer. Like if that was you, like that's what it feels like. You know, that is, you are literally struggling for your life there, and I think what sells it, Javier Bardem's facial expression, just that, just that stare into the ceiling, he's frightening. He's a very frightening dude, and by that point, you don't really know a whole lot about him.
But you learn a lot about him from that very first scene.
Right. Right. He's not really of this world. There's something not quite. Yeah.
He's the embodiment of evil, basically, and death.
Right.
Like, honestly, if you want to think, like, very symbolically about it, like, you can see, like, straight out of, like, the Seventh Seal, any other kind of, like, death representation, Chigurh is death incarnate. Which is also funny. It's like, describe him how, like, the bubonic plague. Woody Harrelson gets introduced later in the film, which is like, he basically is.
Basically, sure.
And the most unnerving thing that caught me watching this again yesterday was when he finally kills him and he's just like,
yeah.
And he just has this sense of release on his face, and he's just like, and it's just like, no.
Like he needs a cigarette.
Yeah. Like there's some kind of, he got way too much pleasure out of killing him and got a release off of it, and it's messed up. But that sets the character, because you get that, and the deputy putting his canister in the front seat of the deputy's car when he arrests him. That's all you need to know about Chigurh.
Right.
Is he kills, he is death.
Yeah.
And has a very strange weapon that he brings along with him. Which that's such an interesting choice, to have a cattle gun set up as a weapon, because you see it later in the film where he just straight up is like, hold still. And he just points at the guy's head and just like, and just how the guy just drops. And it's just like,
yeah.
It's messed up.
Again, that's something I've never seen before. My brain is like, wow, okay.
Yeah, because I remember, I think the only other film that comes to my head right now is It, Part 1. Because I forget the kid's name. The black kid who winds up staying in the town, his dad or uncle forces him to kill a cow. Because it is an air gun.
For cattle.
Because that's what that's supposed to be for. Because you're like, how the hell are you supposed to kill that? And, like, that's what they're made for. And the fact that he just kills people like cattle is kind of disturbing.
Yes.
It says a lot about what he thinks of people.
Yes. And speaking of, Academy Award-winning performance from Javier Bardem.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well deserved, too, actually. I'm not going to argue with that one.
No. And that bowl cut, though.
The most haunting thing in the entire film.
The look.
It was scary enough on me when I was 5. Scary.
He makes some very interesting choices as villains in movies, because his look in this and his look in Skyfall, which I think the blonde hair was his idea.
Okay.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
And it's so off-putting, and like Chigurh just has like that straight bowl cut looking hair. And there's something creepishly funny and charming about him at times with the whole, like, sass that he gives some people. But then at most of the time, he just looks like a machine who's going to kill you at any moment. And you see that in different interactions, because, like, we'll jump into the Texaco scene shortly.
Sure,
But, like, one of my favorite moments is when he goes to Llewellyn's trailer. And, like, he breaks in, and then he goes to the manager's office. And speaking of minor characters in Coen Brothers films, that woman who works at the office when he's just like, where does he work? Like, I can't give out that kind of personal information about my residence. She's like, and he's just like, where does he work? And she's just like, I said I don't gives out that kinds of information. And just like, those little character moments are so great. And you could just see him getting like, is she really talking to me this way? Because you could tell nobody talks to him that way. And he's just like taking it back, and he totally would have killed her if he didn't hear the flush from the room over. Because he knew somebody else was there, so then he just goes and breaks into his house. And all the little details, like he gets the phone records, finds out that he's been calling Odessa, where...
Right.
But we'll get there, but it's just a haunting performance.
Yeah.
And it's so creepy and eerie and intense. And he still makes you laugh with a look. The whole, it's like, don't put it in your pocket.
Yeah.
It's your lucky coin. And then just look up at that guy before he turns around and walks out. It's just like, man.
You know, I haven't seen The Seventh Seal, but I discovered it because of that video that I sent you guys. I haven't never seen that movie. I think there's something indulgent, for me anyway, about these types of characters. Death, you know. And then The Seventh Seal, just the idea of playing chess with death. I mean, it's just so poetic and ironic. And I think that, I mean, that's what we're all going to. Whether, you know, regardless of what it looks like and how it happens, we're all going to go to, we're all going to have to face death someday. And so I think that there's something slightly cathartic and something slightly, like I said, indulgent about the idea of sitting across from one of those characters. And I don't know if it's an empathy thing that I feel when there's a character like that on screen, because obviously I wouldn't want to be there, but I think there's I'm drawn to these types of characters because it's the idea of knowing what's going to happen to you. The idea of knowing, like, that you could actually be face to face with this thing that we've been talking about and so afraid of and so anxious about, and here it is, right in front of you. There's a sense of like closure with it. Which is kind of I don't know. It's this odd kind of almost a drunken kind of thing that happens with me in these types of characters. You know.
Well, I find it so interesting because you get a lot of different kinds of reactions to him in this film. You get people who double down, like that woman in the office, like Carla Jean at the end of the film, that are like, I'm not backing down from you. You don't scare me. Which is also, you know what's interesting? I just thought about this. They were the women that he came from. The women don't back down from him.
Right.
But, like, Carson Wells, Woody Harrelson's character, starts trying to deal and try to, like, strike a deal with him because you know he's afraid of him.
Right.
The man at the Texaco station, which the whole entire, it's like, when do you close? I'm like, oh, I'm closing up now. It's like, no, it's not a time. When do you close? It's like, dark. And that guy's scared out of his mind with this interaction because he has no idea, and it's like, you've been putting it up with your whole life. And that whole entire interaction, and I love the shot of the crumpled up paper, and it just starts uncrumpling, and it holds on to that shot way longer than it should. Well, most movies wouldn't even cut to that because it's not important, but it just somehow builds the tension even more in the scene because you're just like, what's going on here? And the whole entire sequence, because it's so interesting how people react to him. And I just thought of that literally on the spot. It's the women in this film react very differently to the men who come face to face with Sugar.
Yeah, yeah. I know the women, for one thing, they're not interested in the money. None of the women are interested in the money, and I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure what else that's trying to say. But that's it's just the two, right? It's just
yes. And I'm trying to think, because Sugar comes face to face with the kids at the end, but he's in a state like, dude got hit by a car and his bone's literally sticking out of his arm. He's not about like, I'm going to play these games with this kid right now. I want to get the hell out of here. Sell me your shirt. But he comes face to face with Wells, the accountant. In that scene, Stephen Root like goes right for a gun because he knows there's no talking here. He gets shot in the throat, which is so disturbing. Of just that air hole through his throat and just like bubbling out.
That might have been the most disturbing kill.
And then the accountant's just scared shitless. And it's just like, are you going to let me go? She's like, it depends. Did you see me? And that accountant totally was like, I did not see a thing. I'm going to go back to my cubicle. Goodbye. And I'm pretty sure that happened. So, but it's very interesting. Now, what is so great about the editing in this film is impeccable. Which, Roderick Janes or something's the editor on this, aka it's just the Coen brothers. That's a fake name. But they cut, after he kills that deputy at the beginning, to another hunter. And that's when we get Llewellyn Moss hunting some deer.
Yeah.
And so what are both your thoughts on Llewellyn as a character in this film?
I was sad that he died.
very, very unexpectedly. But we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to die like that. I thought that I don't know, he was weird. He was weird too. For like a lot, like just like random reasons. I don't know. Did you like him?
Strangely, yes.
Yeah.
There's something very matter-of-fact about him. I used to have a student who worked with horses back when I worked at community colleges. He reminds me of him. Like, very matter-of-fact, you know, very very blunt, not afraid to tell you what's on his mind, you know. If he doesn't agree with you, he's going to tell you. You know, and that's kind of what Llewellyn struck me as. The first scene when he's with his wife, we were talking about, when he's like, you know, you keep talking like that, I'm going to take you in the back and I'm going to screw you. At first you're like, whoa, man.
And she shoots right back at him.
Yeah.
It's like, that'd be the day.
It's like, keep it up. Keep it up.
Keep it up.
You know, like, that was like, so first of all, she is the cutest freaking thing in the world.
Kelly MacDonald.
I think she is. But that interaction right there just shows, this is Texas. This is the Midwest.
This is 1980.
I did not grow up around people who talk like that to each other, you know. And so, like, you know, but so I don't know. I guess I do. There's something relatable about him, because he comes across as very, it is what it is. You know,
he reminds me of my dad, like 100%. Like, my dad is that kind of person. It's like, you wouldn't say traditionally smart. Like this, like my dad's not like very school educated, but he's smart. He knows around life and stuff like that. And Llewellyn has that.
Right.
He might be a little too good at times, because like the whole entire thing that got him in this mess, because like first off, he took the money in the first place, so that's not good. But then he went back to give that guy agua.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Because he couldn't sleep with himself.
Right. I think that's what makes him relatable too. Is like what I have taken them. I shouldn't say this, but I hope it's not like
we here at Welcome to the Wasteland Show are speaking hypothetically and are not dealing with actual money. So do not hold this against us.
The Identity Report, Tom Cruise is going to like kick through the window and like arrest me for a crime I haven't committed.
Pre-crime.
I probably would have I would have taken like, you know, an eighth or a seventh of the money, put it in my pocket, like, I'm going to go, you know, pay my taxes. You know, like, I wouldn't have taken the entire thing because I know that would have pissed everybody off. So, but I think that's what makes him relatable is that, yes, I definitely would have been tempted to take the money, and I probably, well, you know me, I would have been like, I would have gotten that guy water first. You know,
Yeah.
so I'm nicer than Llewellyn is. That would have been my first priority. Let's get this guy water, call the cops, get these people here. But
you know, his dead body's just like,
yeah.
Obviously. Oh, cash.
So, yeah.
Somebody really wanted this money, so like they're gonna do some stuff for it, and that's the thing, because like you learn so much about him as a complex character so quickly.
Yeah.
He would take the money, but he's not smart enough to realize how bad of a decision that is.
Right.
But he's a good enough guy to go back and try to help that man. And the last thing he says to his wife when he leaves, it's like, if I don't come back, tell my mother I love her. It's just like, well, and your mother's been dead for the... And then he like sits there and he's like, well, then I guess I'll tell her myself.
It also kind of plays into, obviously they can't be incredibly happy. They don't have a very... great life or lifestyle, you know, they have it is what it is sort of life, living in a trailer. And this money and doing this, it's almost like worth it to take this big of a risk and risk his life and maybe even hers to do this, because that money is like a symbol of getting out.
Yeah, like a ticket.
It's like a ticket to a greater life.
But then they get punished for it by making that choice. They like ultimately like they pay everything for that.
And that's the Coens for you.
Yeah, that sounds a little like Fargo. Yeah,
Fargo, Blood Simple, Raising Arizona, all of these schemes and everything. That's the thing. Fate will get you in the end. And I think that's such a deep-seated thing in Coen Brothers films, because life is awkward and strange, and so are Coen Brothers films. Awkward violence, strange happenstance, it just happens. The strangest things happen. And it's not clean, it doesn't seem like this is like a story. It's something that you would expect. This is so crazy, and that's why I love so much why they put at the beginning of Fargo, based on a true story. That kind of stuff is crazy enough to be true.
Wow.
But it's not.
Yeah.
They lied. It's not based on a true story.
Okay.
The Coen brothers literally lied with that at the beginning, because then they did it on purpose to manipulate people, to be like, you see, based on a true story, you're like, oh my god, this could happen?
To me?
Yeah. And the thing is, that kind of stuff happens. The craziest, weirdest things. Think of Florida Man. Florida Man eats a man's brain. Florida Man does this. Headlines of these crazy things that happen in Florida. Maybe the Coens should make a movie in Florida next at this point. But they have like these happenstances, and Llewellyn feeds right into it. But you learn so much about him, and he's resourceful. He's stubborn, 100%, because he does say, like, he does put his wife's life on the line because he won't give in to Shiger. Like, Shiger gives him that choice. I'll just kill you. But if you keep playing with me, I'm going to kill your wife too. And unfortunately, he comes for her at the end.
Yeah.
Because Llewellyn... Shiger's a man of his word. Or a being of his word. Entity of his word. And he's an unstoppable force. That car crash at the end of the film proves that.
Right.
Or even his bathroom surgery proves that. Like,
oh man!
Like that, even more than the end for me, like that bathroom surgery thing, where he's just like, it's almost like he's done it many times before.
Oh, and I'm sure he has.
Like just like how he does that. It's terrible. It's weird, and also those close-ups made me want to throw up a little bit.
It's of his that shotgun wound on his leg. Oh man!
Ooh, speaking of the shotgun, they actually you remember the like the gun that he was holding and the silencer?
Yep.
They actually like had to make that because they were like, hey, so like, can we do that? And they were talking to like some random like gun expert, and they were like, well, Not really. So they actually made that for the movie, which is again something I've never seen before. A silencer on a shotgun.
It was so huge.
Yeah,
yes, and it's that scene where Shiger gets all the Mexicans in that hotel room, and that guy's arm is like half blown off, and it's like flopping around. And I'm like, ugh. And then how cold and calculating he is when he goes into the bathroom and there's a guy cowering in the shower. He turns the curtain back just enough to shoot him so the blood wouldn't get on him.
Right.
And it's just like, you know how cold and calculating and resourceful he is. Yeah. Because I love the scene where he lights that car on fire just so that he could distract them so he could go into the pharmacy and get all that stuff to clean himself up.
Yeah. Right,
like,
yeah.
The detail in this movie and the resourcefulness of all these characters, because Llewellyn's resourceful too. And he's a funny guy. Right. He has some great moments, but he's not the smartest. And Carson Wells...
He's a little dumb.
Carson Wells points out, it's like, I'm going to keep getting away. It's like, Carson Wells like, it took me like 3-4 hours to find you. Like, across the border in Mexico.
Right.
It's like, Shiger's going to find you.
Right.
And But Llewellyn keeps going, and he's a complex character. Because it's like, you just like him because Josh Brolin's great.
He's great.
He's so great. I don't think he gets enough credit in this movie because there's two considerably bigger performances in this movie kind of taking that spotlight from him. But the thing is, that's why I really don't think Llewellyn's the protagonist of the story. In the end, I think this is all about Tom Bell from the very start. Sure. And we're going to get to him next because, oh my God. Yeah. And all the way up to that flirting that Llewellyn does with that girl at the pool, talking about beer.
Yeah.
In the book, they sleep together. They're found dead together.
Oh, okay.
So, again, a penalty for these choices.
Yes. Well, yes. Cormac McCarthy. Sure. The Coens didn't go that far.
Right.
Because you see her dead in the pool. Like, just floating there when Tom Bell shows up. But, like, that whole exchange, they talk about beer, but they also talk about you'll never see coming. And then it cuts to an off-screen death of who the audience thinks is their protagonist. And Tom Bell shows up, and Josh Brolin's dead in his hotel room. How did you both react to that the first time you saw this movie?
I was confused.
When I first saw it, I rewound it.
Because I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, because when I first saw it, like, this is when Netflix would, like, send DVDs, and that was, like, their main thing, you know? So, like, I remember, like, damn, is my disc scratched? Like, I thought for sure.
Did I miss something?
Yeah,
that was the same, like, thing. I, like, wait, jump cut?
No,
like,
we did not miss a thing.
That's crazy.
It cut right to that, and I remember watching it on Encore, because like I didn't really get into the Coens until college, but one time my brother had a friend over and they were watching Encore and No Country was on, and this must have been like, I don't know, I think I was junior in high school, and I sat down and watched some of it with them. I think I came in right when Llewellyn gets to the hotel the first time, so I see that chase scene and everything, and then this happens and I'm like, what?
How much time is left in the movie? Oh.
And I'm sitting there, because, like, I'm a 16, 17-year-old watching this. I'm like, I didn't get it.
Right.
And as an almost 30-year-old, it's beautiful. This is, like, this defied my expectations. And that's the point. Like, they pulled a rug right out from under you.
Right.
And then you really realize whose story this is. Q... Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to tell you right before we got on, but before you got here, I said, this was the first time I watched it. This is maybe the fourth time I've seen it, where I realized that it was the Mexican cartel guys
that
got him, not Anton Chigurh. You know, and I hadn't realized that before. I just always assumed it was Anton Chigurh that killed him.
But it's such subtle storytelling because it was the Mexican guys who got the information from his mother-in-law, because the one guy in the suit helped her with her bag, and she made a very racist comment about Mexicans and him being a very, like, you don't usually see, like, you know, That actress, though, is so hateable in every single movie.
She cracked me up. I'm just
She
gonna
is
say
funny.
I laughed at everything. From the time she's on screen with the, with
So the bag is
hours,
like, you know how many people I know in El Paso? This many. And I'm just like, this lady, though. But, like, all the way leading up to that, and then bam, that's what happens. And cue your real protagonist.
Yeah.
Sheriff Tom Bell, a.k.a. Tommy Lee Jones. So you get his voiceover at the beginning, and then you see him going into action, borrowing his wife's horse. I love that exchange with his wife. She's like, so when do you think I'm going to start getting some money from the county for using my horses? And then she's like, be careful. I was like, yes, ma'am. Don't hurt anybody. All right. And just the way he reacts to that is so perfect, because he knows something's going to wind up happening. This is not like your probably everyday case of having a complete and utter shootout over drugs and stuff. The OK Corral that his deputy calls it. Crap, I forget what that actor's name is, but he's perfect too as Tom Bell's foil, because Tom Bell is sharp as a whip and picks up on everything. And that's the real impressive cat and mouse game, because he is always on Sugar's tail. And he's picking up on things. And one of my favorite moments is when his deputy's like, when Tom Bell, it's like, the milk's still sweating. And he's like, Dad, he was just here. We got to put out whatever, APB. And just like, he's like, for what? There was a man who recently drank milk. Tommy Lee Jones is the sassiest person in this movie. And that's the thing, you laugh so much watching this movie, way more than you think you probably should, with how dark this movie is. But he's so great, and if it wasn't for In the Valley of Elah, that came out the same exact year for this, that he got nominated for Best Actor for.
Oh, I never saw that.
He should have been nominated for Best Actor for this movie.
Or Best Supporting Actor, maybe.
Well, that's the thing. Who's the real protagonist of this movie? The Weinstein Company, or this was Miramax at the time. Miramax would have done their thing and did whatever the hell to category fraud the hell out of this movie. So, but that's the thing too, because who is the lead in this film? It's like, because the thing is, I feel like all three of them have an equal footing in terms of screen time in this movie.
Right.
Sugar obviously doesn't have an arc, because he's not really a character.
Right.
He's not supposed to, really.
But the thing is, who has the arc is Tom Bell. Because that's why he retires. Because it's really, this whole thing, No Country for Old Men, is just like, that whole conversation he has with the other cop at the end, that is just like, they don't even know the world they're living in anymore. Where things like this happen. Which, let's be real here, crazy stuff like this happened all throughout history.
Yeah.
Everybody's just short-sighted, like, in their own lives, thinking, like, nothing's ever been this bad. There's been probably worse times, because, there's definitely been worse times than, like, a drug shootout in Texas, But, like, it's that idea that he doesn't know what he's fighting anymore. And that's why, at the very end of the film, when he goes into Llewellyn's motel room, and he just puts his gun down and sits on the bed. Because, like, he knows Sugar was there. He might not know Sugar is there or not, but he knows he was there. He saw the keyhole shot out. And Tom Bell picks up on all the details. He's a great cop and detective in this movie, picking up on everything throughout this film. But he knows he can't take him down. And I think he's smart enough to know that he's not going to chase him to his death.
Oh, that's what you got out of it. That's interesting.
I feel like that's by the end why he hangs it up as a cop, because he's just like,
this world just passed me by.
Wow.
And that's and that's some of like the deep, not very hopeful thoughts on the film at the end, when he's talking about, it's like, I had a dream and I saw my father. I was older than he ever was. And he's like standing there by the fire. And you could just see all the hope and like life kind of leave Tommy Lee Jones's face as he's telling this story, because it's just like
right, telling it to his wife in particular, you know.
And then he woke up. Oh. Also, one of the there's only one other movie that its ending confused me more than this movie, and that's Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Because I literally sat for 5 minutes after that movie ended like, was that the end of the movie? And then at least this one gives you the courtesy of starts to roll the credits.
Right.
So I know it's over. And then you actually hear score, which that's the eeriest thing.
Very tough to do, by the way.
What, no music?
To have
No
music and to keep an audience engaged and on that trail with you that entire film, which this is not a short film.
No, it's a 2-hour, 2-minute film.
Yeah, not crazy long either, but still,
Yeah.
you know, 2-hour movie. You know, that is, wow, that's an accomplishment.
The dialogue, like the dialogue is so I forgot to say that also. I love how on every single movie that they make that I've seen, just listening to what they say, even if it's about mundane stuff or seemingly mundane stuff that either has like a double meaning or will mean something later, like I just love to hear them just talk. And like wow, just wow. Yeah, just fantastic. Also, I disagree with like the bleakness that Tommy Lee Jones's character, like, is like his takeaway from the whole thing. Like, I feel like these tiny little nuggets in the story where people do help each other, and there are like literally himself being a cop and him like pursuing and trying. I think those are the moments that you're supposed to focus on, where it's like, yeah, there is light in all that darkness. Like, it's not that it's going out. It's just maybe you're just not looking. Maybe you got lost. Maybe he got lost.
I think that's very true for him.
Yeah.
Which is why he had to take a step back. I think
you as in the world around him got lost.
I think
I think he got lost. I think he lost sight of like the good or like the humanity. Like, not everybody walking around is like Shiger, like, I don't know, on the inside.
Right.
Because I'm not.
Right. Yeah. No, I try not to be.
Oh, okay, well, that was it.
Me neither. None of us here at the Welcome to the Wasteland show.
Now that I have to wear this tie, I don't know. Tom Cruise. No.
But that's very interesting because it feels like he does. Well, because that's the thing too, because you could look at, does the film try to tell you that there's a bleakness in life, or does this one particular character lose his way and not realize the light that's still in the world? And I think throughout all of this, Tommy Lee Jones' character doesn't see a whole lot of light during this case. And honestly, if I were a cop and I was near retirement age, I'd probably retire after this case too.
Sure. Well, you know, he also, that scene with all the cats and he's talking to, is it an uncle? Or
That's a good question. I forget. And I've watched this movie like 10 times and I still don't remember their relation. They're family members.
Cousin or uncle.
Something.
Because I kind of look at that and I thought, because at first I thought father, and like, they look, Tommy Lee Jones, it looks like he's older than him. Like, they, you know, or they look like they could be the same age. There was something revealing in that scene about the history of what they had been through and what his father had been through when he was a cop, and goes back to, you know, mentioning the things in the dialogue about how the old timers didn't carry guns. You know, like hearing that, and also, you know, when they go into the trailer, notice he doesn't take his gun out.
Nope.
You know, the deputy does, but he doesn't. And then in that scene they talk about, I think there's some Bible quoting, and something goes along with, you know, that's vanity. You know, he says that that's vanity, and you can't change what's coming. You know, this life has always been tough on us. You know, it's always going to be tough on us, and the idea that you could change that is vanity. And I was like, wow, that's what a perspective, because I don't know about you, but so to get out of the plot or the story for a second, like, my entire life has been about, like, trying to get to levels of comfort because of to hear this perspective. And I think it goes back to this Midwest, it is what it is mentality that I've had. You've had some brushes with that. I've kind of seen other people, you know, in my life have that kind of mentality. I never quite understood that. It's like, oh, it's not what it is. We can make it better, you know.
Well, and
cats. I don't know.
I love how he's like, how many cats do you have now? And he's just like, guess it depends on what you mean by have. Some of them, like hang around here, is like, some of them are outlaws. And just like, those outlaw cats. But like, that's the thing. Because like, honestly, if anybody's ever had cats, they kind of do whatever the hell they want anyway. So it's like, how much do you really like own them?
No, it's funny. I was thinking about one of my friend Jim. I was just hanging out with Jim the other day. And I think one of his cats, he said the same thing. His mom or dad said, yeah, well, it's not really ours, but it hangs around. You know?
Well, and it's so interesting because like, the world is a bleak place. And like, if you've ever read Cormac McCarthy's writing ever, he has a very bleak look at the world.
Yeah.
There's some dark shit in his books. The Road, Blood Meridian. There's some disturbing things in those books. And No Country is no different. It's a little toned down, which is the interesting thing compared to like The Road. But there's always a poetic beauty about his words, which is why the dialogue works so well in this film, along with all the harshness of everything that it's portraying. And they're just from the themes of this film, it's just like, it challenges you to really think about your outlook on life and the world around you. Because you could leave this film and if it touches you a certain way, you're leaving thinking like, my God, the world's irredeemable. And we just need to do our best to survive in it.
And that sounds like, I couldn't even imagine myself taking on that perspective. Because then I feel like I would also then put down my gun. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be able to move forward. Because there is no forward. Because everything's crap. Like, so,
Well, and I think, I like how you put it, Matt, that he's lost. Yeah. I think he lost his hope. And he hung it up, and he doesn't know what to do. And the commentator's like, so what are we doing today, honey? He's just like, I didn't retire. I gotta work. And he's just like sitting there like, what's he gonna do with his life? And I think that's gonna be a hard journey for him because he's been a cop for all these years, and he's really good at it. Like, I don't think anybody in this whole entire movie is anywhere near Sugar and what's going on in this situation except for Sheriff Bell. Because he's always on his tail. But that's just such an interesting thing because Moss never meets Sugar. Moss never meets Bell. Bell never meets Sugar. These three characters never see each other.
Right.
Face to face. The closest is Llewellyn and Sugar on the phone, which that kill on Carson Wells off camera is like with the ring of the phone and the and you can the book is very detailed on how brutal that death was.
Like how does the book portray it?
Oh, the blood is splattered all over the wall, dripping down the wall, and like it's gruesome. The Coens, it's so interesting because the Coens show some gruesome things, but they show so much restraint here, and it's better storytelling that way. Because that scene is impeccably shot with him just looking at him on the phone. It doesn't cut away from him except to cut to Llewellyn on his side of the phone, except for the one shot picking his feet up away from the blood, which then comes back, because that's how you know he killed Carla Jean.
Credit to the actors, because especially Woody, because he knows. And just the look on his face and the way he says a dialogue, knowing this is it. And I think this goes back to the indulgent thing. That's really weird and dark, but maybe psychologically there's something like knowing that you're in front of it and it's coming and you can't stop it, you can't reason with it. And the way Woody said those lines, it's like, you know, it's like a combination of sad and like takes your breath away because you know he's dead.
Well, and he's so very different in his interactions. He's cocky. He's just cool. Talking to Stephen Root, he's the same way with Llewellyn. He's a completely different person in front of Sugar.
Right.
They're completely different.
Well said. He's got so much confidence outside of that conversation, and now he's gone.
Well, and it's so great how they have Sugar loom over the deputy at the beginning, and just the shot of him coming into frame up the steps behind Carson Wells as he's walking up the steps, and we know, Woody Harrelson's dead. He's a dead man walking.
Sure.
Because at that point, there's nothing stopping him if he wants to kill you. Llewellyn's always a step ahead of him.
Yeah.
Because that scene, which is one of my favorite scenes in film, from the point that Llewellyn's in his room and he finds the tracker and he can hear the beep, 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 and he turns the lights off. The foot shadows under the door and that camera shot of the keyhole.
Right.
And if you're paying attention earlier in the film, you know exactly what's happening. Because in the beginning, when he breaks into Llewellyn's trailer, he shoots the keyhole, it shoots across the room and hits the wall and cuts into the wall.
Yeah.
And this time it hits right into Llewellyn and cuts right into his side. And then we're off. And he jumps out the window. He's running through, dodging those shotgun shots. Yeah. And the guy in the truck getting shot. Driving the car. And
collateral. Collateral damage,
Yep. That whole cutting back and forth between Llewellyn trying to drive the truck and the bullet holes keep appearing in the windshield, and all the way up to he shoots Sugar.
Right.
He almost had him. He dove behind the car and got him right in the thigh.
And and then to make just a comment, you mentioned the collateral damage. It seems like it's the more minor characters that we get more of the gore from. Whereas the main characters, it's the subtlety, it's the threat of violence. And if they, you know, even in the case of Woody, we see blood, but we don't see Woody bleeding.
Nope.
You know, and so I think that I just find that interesting because
that is interesting.
The threat of the violence is always going to be so much more tense and intense than the violence itself.
Because the most brutal death that we see of a named actor in this movie is Stephen Root. And he's borderline.
Right.
Because like Stephen Root's a really great character actor, but I don't think most people watching this movie is like, oh, I know Stephen Root.
Milton.
Yes.
It's Milton.
Can I have my stapler?
Yeah.
And like Bill Dauterive from King of the Hill. And he's basically, he's in so many Coen Brothers films. Yeah. Stephen Root's a great actor, and he has this very small role in this.
Sure.
And you just see him like, and just like the blood coming out of his throat. Yeah. But everybody else, the most gore you see is actually Sugar. Between getting that shot
the
of
the close-up.
Sure.
And him stabbing himself with a needle.
Right.
I don't like needles.
Maybe I need to become an EMT. That stuff doesn't bother me at all.
I'm terrified by
it. So how can you watch that but then not like horror? Like,
well, there's a difference between gore, which unless it's like gore porn horror, like Saw or something like that, versus like something that's gonna terrify you.
So that stuff can be unnerving, like the really gory stuff. You know, the
House
real
of a Thousand
grindhouse.
Corpses.
You know, that
Rob
stuff
Zombie.
doesn't scare me. It's the threat of usually like ghosts and stuff
things
about the devil.
We don't understand.
Right, exactly. You know,
the unknown.
You know, because it's more about the threat of this thing that feels. You know, like I said, with ghosts, for me, it's like I've felt stuff. You know, I lived where my grandma had lived, and she had also died in that same house. And there were nights where I felt stuff, you know, and there were nights where I felt like pleasant things, and there were nights where I felt not so pleasant things. And so it was very, you know, it's very weird. It could all be in my mind, Or it could just be...
I don't want to know.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So, for me, I'm the kind of person that, like, if I found out that ghosts, aliens, Sasquatch, all that kind of stuff existed, wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not the one to go out and try to find them. I'm good.
I don't think Sasquatch wants to bother anybody, though. Sasquatch wants to roam around the hills of... that's
he just
cool.
wants to enjoy the Canadian wilderness. Like, he just wants to enjoy that. Like, but to get back to...
What are we talking about?
We're talking about the violence. The gore, and then that bone sticking out of Shigur's arm.
Sure. Yeah.
And the thing is, it doesn't stop him.
Right, all those details. And, I mean, maybe the idea of him, it reminds me of a character from the movie, not as good of a movie, but an interesting film, Only God Forgives, with Ryan Gosling, Nicholas Winding Refn. That character, the samurai cop in it,
Yes.
He's like an angel of death.
Yes.
That's what he's a symbol of.
He's very obviously supposed to be that.
And he doesn't nobody makes him bleed, Well, we see, one thing that's cool about Anton Chigurh is that I'd like to believe, I don't know, is he human? Like, is it okay to say, well, he is a human being, but because of the forces of nature around him, he's basically trained himself to be this unstoppable force.
To be honest, in the context of the film, he's a human being.
Right.
Like, he's just... When Llewellyn was like, what, he's supposed to be some kind of unstoppable badass? and like, Carson Wells is like, wouldn't describe him as that. You don't describe Chigurh as, like, the ultimate badass. He's not some, like, action star. He's just a force of nature.
He's not a human in, like, the ways that, like, count. You know what I mean? Like, the socializing part, the empathetic part.
There's none of that.
The part that makes you want to maybe not kill people. Like,
I feel like if you kill if you kill people for a job, maliciously.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, there's a whole, like, because if you think about, like, soldiers and stuff like that that are doing this to protect people or stuff like that, but if you're, like, a hitman or an assassin...
It's money, it's drugs, it's powerful.
Yeah, this is impulse, and this is like you're getting, like, a pleasure thing out of it. This is not...
He obviously enjoys it. He obviously,
something selfish within it,
There's some kind of deficiency there where it's like they don't feel or something sadistic about it where they enjoy it.
I think what's interesting is to jump back to, she's so Kelly MacDonald, and her basically, she challenges him on this idea that he is this thing. She's like the only one, I think.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Woody tries, but she actually, she's like, no, you don't. You don't. And he's like, well, yeah, I do. He's like, no, you don't. And it doesn't, like you said, like, it doesn't make any sense to him, the way she's reacting. And I find it ironic that, yes, turns out when he looks at his shoes, he does kill her. But I find it ironic right after that conversation, he just gets slammed by a car. Like,
because she broke his whole concept of reality.
Yeah.
Like, he seemed confused and broken in that scene because he's just like, it looks like a machine malfunctioning.
Right.
And it's just like, cannot compute, which, like, this is really silly, but we just watched that trailer for the Mitchells versus the Machines, and where it's like, dog, pig, loaf of bread, cannot compute.
It's supposed to be a pug.
Yeah, it's a pug. But that's that kind of moment. It's like he can't process what she is saying to him because she has to be the first person to ever confront him on that.
His own, like, moral code. Where it's kind of like, oh, I can never really question that. Maybe I'm wrong.
And and it's like,
can't be wrong.
What kind of person? Well, and then that guy either ran a red light, got sick at the wheel, drinking, whatever it was, because Chigurh had a green light.
Right.
It's very obvious he had a green light. So, like, life came in and whacked him.
Right, and I think this was what makes his character so amazing to me. Why it won the Oscar, because, you know, there is this unstoppable force thing. You know, there is this angel of death, devil incarnate, whatever you want to call it, death itself. But, you know, at the same time, he's a human being, and, you know, he gets messed up. You know,
and he's vulnerable.
Right, yeah. And so I don't know why, but I just love that. I guess my question really is, for conversation, is what is he supposed to, is he supposed to symbolize something bigger, knowing that? Is he not beyond just a Grim Reaper? Like, is he supposed to symbolize something bigger in the world?
I think in a more traditional story, he 100% would have.
Okay.
I think what makes it No Country for Old Men and Cormac McCarthy's writing and the Coen brothers is this film is all about defying your expectations. Your protagonist dies off screen. Your movie ends with your maybe other protagonist talking about a dream and then just being like, I woke up and it cuts.
Yeah.
What you expect to be this unstoppable thing because the movie tells you this gets his earth shattered in his last moments in the film, and then him being hit by a car, and even his interactions with those kids is like the most human interaction he had with anybody, because like there was no like coldness about his interaction with them. Honestly, it seemed like a really in pain person interacting with those kids, asking for help.
I do wonder though about the idea that he has to, he notice how off it is that he would want to pay $20 or whatever it was, $100 for a shirt, you know, in that type of situation where most people would just give you a shirt. And that basically is his life. It is a transactional life that he's living.
Yeah.
Where he's being paid to be what he is.
It's very obvious he does not know how to carry human interactions or relationships. Like, I think that's very obvious through this film because I don't think anybody's challenged him before. And when Carla Jean does, he just like...
He got emotional. Like, that was one of like the rare moments in the whole movie where it's like he's not a piece of stone. And then it's like, oh, okay, wow.
He's shaken a little bit in that scene. And that's the thing because you could... And I think that's why Javier Bardem won the Oscar for this because like if he was just like this cold... calculating performance this whole entire movie, it was really good, but that sets it apart.
There was something else, and I love that she's the one who brings that out of him. You know,
yeah, because he could have really been the Terminator.
Right.
Could have been Arnold. Could have been.
Could have done this, and it would have been you know.
But Javier Bardem's an incredible actor, and he added so many layers to this. And Tommy Lee Jones and Josh Brolin are some of my low-key favorite actors, and they really brought something to this film, especially Tommy Lee Jones.
So here's the thing, I'm not a huge fan of Tommy Lee Jones. You know, I like him better than Gene Hackman, as you now know.
Yeah.
I'm not a Gene Hackman fan. Before French Connection.
Way better cop.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. But I do think Tommy Lee Jones is amazing casting. Like, on the nail. Like, perfect. Yeah, I can't see anybody else.
Like, I read the book years after, like, I have watched this film like 5-6 times before I even read the book. And every time I read any of those voiceovers, it's just Tommy Lee Jones' voice in my head. And I couldn't get it out of my head because, like, I couldn't imagine anybody more perfect. And this was an interesting time for Josh Brolin because, like, he had just done Milk. Milk was slightly after this. So, like, Josh Brolin was a kid actor. He was a teenager. Right. He was in the Goonies.
I hadn't seen him.
And, like, he just pops up in this, pops up in Milk, pops up in True Grit for all of, like, 10 minutes Chaney's on screen in it. And he had a complete career revitalization. And obviously, his most famous role right now, you don't even see his face because he's a giant purple Titan in Thanos. Oh, but he is perfect. I thought that was odd casting when they casted him at first. Because he's also, like, even watching this film, he's not a big dude.
Right.
Yeah, he's like a stocky, like, half of his body's his torso. He has like a odd shape to him too, but like he's intimidating and he has a good voice.
He does.
There's some great voices in this movie. All three of them, like Chigurh's voice is just haunting. But I think talked about a lot of awesome things about this movie. And if you sat and watched this and hadn't watched No Country for Old Men, what's wrong with you? But if you haven't, go watch it. But also, this made me want to watch it again.
How long is the book?
Me too. Yeah.
Like 200 something pages.
Oh, so not like a Order of the Phoenix. Like.
No.
Nothing.
I don't think anything by Cormac McCarthy is huge.
Okay.
It's maybe this one was closer to 300. I think The Road's low 200s.
Low 200.
Okay.
But like it's very visual.
I want to, because when you were talking, we were talking again about the violence on screen and the violence off screen. The violence described in the book and the violence that you actually see on screen. I love how, because I didn't read all of Jurassic Park, but I read the first like couple of chapters. I could not believe it was like the rated R, like unrated version.
Oh, really?
Of the PG movie or PG-13 movie that we got.
Michael Crichton's book is like next level.
You get like the raptor. You could like the guy comes in on a gurney and he's got the raptor claw that scratched out his organs and like. Jurassic Park, like Steven Spielberg. No, like
Michael Crichton,
Jurassic Park. Like so, I was like amazed that like I think the writing was really good. Obviously, I only read the first. I don't read a lot. I read enough, but
some of Michael Crichton's work I couldn't get through because it could get too technical. It's like on the same level as like Tom Clancy can get like lost in the details.
I can't relate to a lot of that stuff.
It's dense.
But I do love how a writer and a director and all these people can get together and go, okay, this is the book. Now how do we take the thread of that and make them just feel the tension or the horror or the threat in a movie? I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I think when it's done well, it's not just an appreciation of what happens in the book, like the story. Almost kind of like when you remake a movie, like why remake it, doing like a shot-for-shot thing, or
Psycho.
Even, exactly, like without understanding. Okay, so why was that impactful? Like, oh, okay, maybe we should have set that thing up with something else, and then there's a payoff. It's not just about the head exploding, but it's like the tension of when is it going to happen. Oh, okay, maybe that's probably the reason why.
Yeah.
Because they just understood what the book was trying to say.
It might be another fun thing to do like a book and movie thing, because there's always a lot of controversy about the social controversy about book versus movie. Oh, they didn't put in what they had in the book. Every time they make a movie based on a book, you hear that now.
Yeah.
But some of the best movies that we talk about, Jurassic Park, Cuckoo's Nest, and this,
so different.
No one's complaining.
The Shining,
and that's because
so different. Except you're Stephen King.
They did it well, and it's right. It's not that they made Ken Kesey didn't like Cuckoo's Nest.
Nope.
But no one else complains because it's not that they had to be true to form exactly what happens in the book, but they did. They took the heart of it and they did the best job making the heart of that book. You know, they got the core of it, and that's what's most important.
It's themes, not just visuals.
Right.
Well, and Cormac McCarthy's writing is so like darkly poetic and beautiful in a strange way. This is a very visual film. Like the visual details down to everything, from the little detail of like the cut in the wall from the keyhole, the grate at the end in Llewellyn's room, knowing that that money was in that vent at the end, doesn't have to tell you anything. This film, with its editing, with its storytelling, so like, I know I mentioned before we got on the guy in the chicken coops. Chigurh is like, it's like, can you get those out of the back of the truck? And the guy's like, wait, what? And then it cuts to him cleaning out the back of the... Yeah. You didn't need to see him kill that guy. You know exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And that's what's so impressive about the Coen brothers and their visual storytelling.
Yeah, they'll say like all of that is like their voice.
Well, yeah, and it's literally them, because they edited this movie, they directed this movie, and they wrote this movie.
Right.
Throw in Deakins, And you got a Coen Brothers movie.
He is wonderful. I mean, the way he just the light and the dark, the night shots, the day shots in the desert. There, it's just
very few cinematographers capture shadow and darkness and a richness in the frame like Roger Deakins does.
Yeah.
Which also makes me sad when I get the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. I can no longer gush over Roger Deakins.
I like Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
I do. He does not. That would be an interesting...
That was a mix. A good friend of mine, also a big fan of like Big Lebowski and No Country, same thing. They didn't like Buster Scruggs.
Buster Scruggs is also a mix within itself.
Yeah.
Because you can tell
right.
It was supposed to be a Netflix series.
Obviously, yeah.
Like
it's like a Western Twilight Zone.
Yeah, those stories were not meant to go together. Right. And then it just kind of feels like this wasn't a cohesive film. But there's certain ones I really liked. Some of them, like...
Yeah. Right. Like the last one I could have done without, With
honestly. The death one?
The death one.
On the... Yeah. I thought that was a fun reveal.
It was eerie.
It was creepy.
But that was the most Twilight Zone one of them all.
100%. Yeah. My favorite definitely was The Prospector with Tom Waits. Yeah.
That was cool. Yeah, I love that. I thought that was awesome.
But that'll be my last Coen Brothers film, and then I'm probably starting Christopher Nolan.
No?
It'll take me a lot longer to watch his movies. Because I think most of Coen Brothers movies are like 2 hours or less.
Right.
Not the case for one Christopher Nolan. But those are our thoughts on No Country for Old Men. We had a lot of them, so I hope you appreciated them. But you can comment and we could have a chat about them in the comments. Because that is a wonderful place to have great conversations with full respect of everybody's opinions.
There we go.
So we're going to be shifting gears into our last segment here, which is some Q&A. So I have just a couple. So this is all these are really related to the wide release that came out this weekend, which is Mortal Kombat. So if you haven't watched my review, it's on my channel right now.
I figured. I'm not surprised.
It's dumb. Like... and it's not even like campy fun like the '95 one. It's dumb. Really dumb. And why was it an hour and 50 minutes?
I don't know why. Coming out of ShopRite before, there was a guy who looked at me. I got the COVID mask here, and he had one just like this. He had a ponytail. I have a ponytail for some reason right now, and he gave me a dirty look. I guess I got in his way or something, and I wanted to say, hey, you know what, man? I'm not the Scorpion to your Sub-Zero. I don't,
That fight was cool.
Yeah.
I'm not the Scorpion.
That one paid off.
Relax.
But so. Here's a question for both of you. Who's your favorite action star?
Right now, like any time?
Ever. Favorite? So if you wanted to watch an action movie and you wanted your favorite action star to be in it, what actor would you pick?
Oh, damn.
I feel like it would... I'd have to go with like the flavor of action movie that I wanted. Like, if I want, like, more like a martial arts thing, then that's, like, one thing. If I want explosions...
What's your favorite?
Okay, let's see.
So, like, what's your favorite kind of action film? That might decide who your favorite action
martial
star.
Arts and action aren't always one and the same. Because I could say Bruce Lee, but I feel like Bruce Lee didn't do action movies. To me, they were martial arts movies.
Well, I guess, because, like...
It could be like a thriller. Sort of, kind of. Game of Death was like
action movie, I feel like, is very broad. And that's the thing, too, because it's also the difference between violence and action.
Right.
Because, like, you have Sicario is not an action movie. There's violence. They're shooting people and stuff like that, but it's not like an action movie. You're not there to be, like... We're not there, like, it isn't about family and ramming cars off of buildings with Vin Diesel. He's definitely not mine, I can tell you that. While you both think...
So, or The Rock's. Not The Rock's favorite either.
Yeah! I was about to say, The Rock is an awesome action star. He's not my favorite. He just has so much charisma. But if I had to pick... So, preface this is purely based off of...
LOL.
So, this is purely based off of acting here, but I'm a huge fan of Mad Max. I'm a huge fan of Lethal Weapon. So I love me some Mel Gibson action movies.
Yeah.
I don't want to hang out with Mel Gibson.
Right.
But
okay,
no,
this is why I'm hesitating to. I have a similar answer, only maybe not as bad as Mel Gibson.
You'd have to hit pretty high to.
Yeah, because I know Braveheart's not an action movie, but he was an action star. He was a badass. Mel Gibson was.
Riggs in Lethal Weapon.
He was badass.
And then Max Rockatansky.
Yeah. So
his last name?
Yeah.
Huh.
So he had a wife and kid.
Is he Polish?
It could have been.
Hey, West Jersey! No. There's nothing wrong with that. Bruce Springsteen was part Polish.
We're the Jersey Boys podcast here.
That's right. No, I dated a Jersey girl who's Polish. Anyway, yeah.
I have a Polish friend.
Yeah. I have a Polish friend.
Good for you, Matt. So who's your aunt? So back to our question.
Uncomfortable joke.
No, so I'm hesitating because Bruce Willis was our John Wayne.
Well, here's
John Wayne was also I'm going home. So in other words, all the action stars are complete assholes.
There we go.
So we can forget the fact that Bruce Willis has basically slept through like 99% of his work for the past 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
But Die Hard.
In the 90s, he was just Fifth Element, but he was also doing indie stuff. I mean, come on, Pulp Fiction. I mean, he was the action star who could do independent shit. He was so cool.
Shyamalan.
Just hearing the horror stories about working with him, like
he's a dick.
2000 on, he just became a complete dick. He treated interviewers like shit. He just became.
Him and Kevin Smith actually got to shouting at each other apparently on a set. What movie was that?
That was
Cop Out.
Yeah, there
Kevin Smith in the book. I read a book. He went back into his trailer. He punched holes in the wall of his trailer. He was so angry.
So
I think Gene Hackman, he pissed off somebody in Royal Tenenbaums too.
No, he pissed off the whole entire cast and Wes Anderson.
There we go.
Gene Hackman. This will have another video where we talk about the biggest Hollywood asshole.
Who's our favorite assholes? Quick side note. Royal Tenenbaum is one of my favorite performances in movies. But yes, apparently he was a humongous asshole to everybody, including Wes Anderson. But so we got Bruce Willis because Die Hard is Die Hard. So, Matt, who are you saying?
Let me go after you. Oh, you already did Mad Max.
I didn't let you. Trying to think of somebody who's not an asshole.
Yeah,
it's gonna take time.
I don't know.
Keanu Reeves.
You give somebody.
Keanu Reeves.
Let's go Keanu Reeves.
He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. But usually you give somebody a whole millions of dollars and all the guns they want, they become an asshole.
But Keanu Reeves is a beautiful human being, and he gave us The Matrix. And don't you dare kill his puppy.
Yes.
Or take his car, because he will mess you up. So
there's a meme where you see the Thanos start doing the snap, and you see the puppy
disappearing,
disappearing, and then Keanu Reeves is starting to get ready with a gun.
Thanos would not make it in John Wick 4.
Oh, man.
So
yeah, I'll go Keanu Reeves because he's that guy.
And he can actually do it.
Apparently, the director, he was talking to Keanu Reeves, I think, in preparation for either the last one or the second to last one, John Wick 2, and he was like, "So what stunts have you not done?" And then he said, "Okay, I'll just make a list." And they said, "Okay, so these are the things that we're gonna do in this movie, and then maybe
ride a horse."
Yeah, actually, yeah, it was ride a horse, something like that. Yeah. And then that's also when you saw the that behind the scenes, not behind the scenes, but when he was training with the gun. I definitely recommend both of you guys watch that.
Oh, I definitely watched it.
You saw that before?
Because he could do all those things for real.
Yeah.
John Wick 3 or?
Just in general.
Yeah, he was someone recorded him gun practice training for the movie, and it's oh crap.
Yeah.
Like he's
he's
really good.
Real deal, absolutely. We also forgot we forget about because he gets a lot of shit is Tom Cruise, but I mean he
might be a Scientologist, but like man,
he is a hell. I mean he does it for real.
He does,
and he really likes what he does. Also,
he's going to space.
Also, like, just super random. But did you guys hear him freak out on the
set of Mission Impossible because you are not gonna get up. None of us are getting COVID because you're not shutting down my movie.
Really?
He just freaked. Like,
so like
5 minutes, just freaked out. Like I am not gonna. You are gonna be fired. Can you hear me? Look at me and repeat what I'm saying. Yeah.
So here's the thing.
Asshole.
Oh yeah. But here's the thing. He did not want anybody to get COVID, which is a good thing. But his motivation was because he did not want to lose money and delay his movie. So sometimes people do good things for terrible reasons and in a terrible way.
Jeez.
So
because Lord knows, no matter how good or bad they are, we need another Mission Impossible movie.
I want he's filming 7 and 8 right now.
Oh, at the same time.
Yes, because he's not getting any younger.
Yeah.
So because I need more Mission Impossible movies because they're amazing.
I heard they're pretty good. I have heard
Oh my god,
they're pretty good.
Fallout.
And I will keep them at arm's length forever and ever.
Matt's actually sitting right in front of my Mission Impossible movies right there. But Fallout's one of the best action films of the 20th century.
Okay.
21st century. Sorry about that. That and Fury Road are 2 of the top action movies of the past 10 years. Like, the top. Fight me.
We should, that should be a topic at some point.
Action movies?
I kind of want to fight that also. I want to think about that, but I want to fight that.
So, next episode of Development Hell Podcast is going to be our top action movies, so you're welcome.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a rant.
Oh, yeah, I thought we were going to do rants. Yeah, 3 rants.
So that's going to be one of your rants.
Why don't you want that to be my rant?
What Matt's actually saying here is he wants to fight me. What's better, The Matrix or T2 Judgment Day?
I mean, but there's a very easy answer to that, though.
Yes, it's T2 Judgment Day.
Interesting.
But our next question here is...
Interesting thought. But do kids still talk about T2 now?
Yes. Just because the other, 6 Terminator movies have soiled the franchise, I know it's actually only 4, but... to be fair, we're saving this for a rant video. So, we'll talk about this. My last question for both of you, along the same kinds of lines, what's your favorite fight scene in a movie?
Ooh, okay. So that's way easier. That is way easier. Okay.
Go, Matt.
So, because there's a few, right? Because there's the hallway scene in Old Boy.
Oh my god.
One guy and a hammer.
Yup.
With a knife in his back and just fighting, fighting people. And it's almost kind of like playing a video game where it's like this is him, and then there's enemies over here, and the camera it kind of is just following, and then it pauses, and he's fighting, and he's getting pushed over, and the action is silly and almost because he's losing his breath, and he's falling down, and he's getting hit, and he's really reacting. Fantastic.
Old
Boy.
So if you have seen Daredevil Season 1, they have also seen Old Boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They very obviously got that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's not shot the same exact way, but it's hard to make a hallway fight scene after Old Boy and not people be like. See, I am also a fan of Old Boy. Willem Dafoe meme from Spider-Man. You see, I am a fan of Old Boy myself.
Back to formula. Back to formula.
Back to formula.
Oh man, and the raid.
Harry, avenge me!
I've never seen that either.
You have to. That I will recommend. That you own it.
Raid's down there, and then Old Boy is also down there.
The Raid is fantastic. Now that is probably one of my favorite.
We could actually have movie nights now.
Yes.
So.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
Just do a live thing.
That's right, China. Movie night.
Now we can too. Brought to you by Pfizer.
The official thoughts of the Welcome to the Wasteland is please go get vaccinated so that we all could go back to our lives and be safe there's your PSA.
And
Back to
COVID is real.
That is also an official thought. There you go, Matt. So the raid.
Yeah, let's go. The raid. That also is
the whole movie.
The whole movie. Like there's a fight scene, like in a prison, and they're all. It starts out inside of a bathroom, and then they're just like fighting, and like you definitely can tell something's going to happen because. Like, if I remember correctly, I haven't seen this in a while, but basically he's just in the bathroom, he doesn't want to get beat up, and then the sound gets sort of like cut out of the scene, and you just see like the stall door is getting pounded and pounded and pounded, and you can tell he's like getting ready, so he's just like getting ready, and then like finally open. No. He kicks it open because he's waiting for the screws on the door to kind of like loosen up. Then he kicks it open and then starts fighting. And then they push him back in, and then he's fighting back. It's a fantastic movie. This is the second film.
You should go watch Old Boy and The Raid.
Fantastic.
Alex, what's your answer?
Yeah.
So I'll give 2 just because I feel like I have to, especially when we were talking about Bruce Lee. Mm-hmm. So it's not the one where Bruce Lee fights Brad Pitt. It's the one. It's actually Bruce Lee and that whole Game of Death sequence that he never got to finish. That they re-edited. 20, 30 years after he died. That whole thing it's really more than one scene. But the scene with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar where he looks at Kareem and he's like,
literally 3 times as tall as him.
Yeah, he's like. Why do we have to keep fighting? Just let me pass because he wanted to go up the pagoda. And
the battle tower.
And Kareem says because I'm not afraid of death. It's like, all right, like, and so the end of the fight is just like it's a submission through like we have to fight. Like we can't just like I can't just let you go. I can't just let you pass. There's something really. Like sad and sobering and beautiful about that because and that's why I wish he had been alive for like at least another 20 years. He would have done so much cool shit. He proved that he was going to be like a really good director. Mm-hmm. I think he would have been a great like martial arts director. I think he had at least 2 or 3 like really good martial arts films in him throughout the 70s. And
I think he's like authentically a good fighter.
He's great, and that's the thing. No strings, not there's anything wrong with that stuff, but like it was all hand to hand. It was like
Chuck Norris.
Yeah, and Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan
also he fought Chuck Norris.
Oh yeah, that's
in Way of the Dragon.
Yeah,
and he also actually hit Jackie
or Return
Chan.
of the Dragon, depending on where you pick it up. Yeah.
Yeah, but he actually like hit Jackie Chan. I forget what interview, but because it was like way early in Jackie Chan's career, and he almost like don't even see Jackie's face, and he said like he actually connected and it hurt really bad.
Oh, I'm sure he was incredibly strong, it's.
But is he better than Cliff Booth?
It's better than Cliff Booth. Sorry, no. But that's the. But I had to bring that up. There's a lot of great fight scenes with Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
But my number one might have to be the battle of the 2 gargantuans in Kill Bill Volume 2 in the trailer with the bride and Elle Driver. That was insane. And the way it ends with taking the eye out. The stakes right there. Like I don't know that was like one of the most disgusting fights between 2 people, let alone 2 women.
I poisoned his fish heads.
Yeah. Bitch.
She killed her master. Yeah.
It's so over the top. It's like so ridiculous. Like if you're watching it with your Aunt Susie or something like that, she's like, "Oh, this is crazy." It was like, "This is awesome, Aunt Susie. Shut up."
So, also some great choices. Obviously, if you haven't ever watched Bruce Lee movie or him fighting, go do that. And we're also huge fans of Quentin Tarantino here, so you should probably go watch Kill Bill. So my pick is, this one's very close to me because it involves Wolverine. And it is the fight that he has with Hiroki Sanada's character in the Wolverine when he gets his powers back and he straight fights a samurai. Samurai sword. adamantium claws.
Yeah.
That was intense, impactful, and poignant. And then they ruined it with giant CGI blobs fight at the end of the movie.
But that I watched it on TV recently, and I don't know. I can't remember if it was HBO or regular TV, and I remember thinking, "Oh shit, this holds up! Like this was like the action was really good."
When Sonata slices him and thinks he gutted Logan, and Logan just turns around and just seals up, I'm like, "Oh, this guy's gonna get messed up."
And you were waiting for that. You really were.
Because the whole movie, they hold you out for that because he was losing his healing the whole time, and when he heals up, and you're just like, we're back in business now.
I remember watching it and feeling like it felt a little cheap to me the first time I saw it. It's like, okay, that's a cheap way of kind of making him more vulnerable. But then again, when I rewatched it, I'm kind of like, you kind of need to do something because otherwise he's just unstoppable. But he's such a relatable, vulnerable character emotionally.
Yes.
We need to see him bleed.
Mm-hmm. The whole entire arc of the film, though, fits so well, and they could have dealt with the action better in the third act, but it wouldn't be the first time you saw that in a superhero movie like Black Panther. Giant CGI rhinos and Rubber Band Man fighting each other at the end.
Oh, the end of Black Panther? Oh, that didn't really bother me for some reason.
Those rhinos right on screen, I'm like...
Oh, it just looked fake.
It looked, yes.
Okay.
The idea of the rhinos did not bother me.
No,
the fakeness of the rhinos bothered me. And then T'Challa and Killmonger fighting each other looked like rubber band people.
Oh, okay.
Because they were falling?
Yes, and fight, but Logan wanting to die, but can't, and then becoming vulnerable and realizing why he shouldn't is such a great story.
Sure.
And then they ruined it with a poorly done third act of the movie. Because the Wolverine was on fast track to be one of my favorite comic book movies. But I just can't forgive Viper.
It's very Power Ranger.
Oh! Power Ranger.
She looked like she was out of a Power Rangers movie.
She was like, where's Ivan Ooze and all this, you know?
I smell teenagers.
She looked like Rita Repulsa, like straight up. Like Elizabeth Banks, Rita Repulsa.
Oh, man.
And on that note... So obviously,
impression, so that was my first ever.
I hope you all stuck around for this whole entire show, but we have the Oscars to watch and pizza to eat.
That was the best part of the show. There's pizza?
I'm ordering pizza.
I love you, man. I got $5 somewhere.
No, this is it's part of my party. You don't have to pay me shit.
Oh.
So,
all right.
But thank all of you for tuning in and always supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.
Oh, I already did. Okay. Well, again, you get it twice.
I'm leaving that in. Thank you all. Have a good night.